And good afternoon, Vallejo. My name's Deborah Dickson, and I am the host of Our Voices. I am so delighted to have with me today as my guest, Reverend Dr. Dante Quick, the senior pastor of Friendship Baptist Church, and our parent advocate, Mrs. Deborah Sears. Welcome to the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and talk about what's important to all of us, and that's our children and our youth of today. We want to spend as much time and as much effort and energy as we can giving them the best opportunity that we can. And based on that, we've got our upcoming school year coming, and we've had some changes, Vallejo, within the last 9 months. And so we're going to talk about some of those changes. We're going to talk about the positive parts of it. We're going to talk about the not so positive parts of it. And then we're going to talk about how we can all come together to work together to make it better for our children. And I'd like to start with you, Pastor Quick, if you would please, if you would just give us a quick rundown on what has been happening with eyeball, late night basketball. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Well, as you know, we're in our third year. We just completed our third year. We've expanded the program. And I think the beautiful thing about eyeball, now eyeball and iChair, is that we're in partnership with 7 different agencies around the county. I'm disappointed that we gather up to 300-400 young people, and our media has not caught on to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We've not had a negative instance. We've done conflict resolution. They learn their HIV/AIDS status. Just a number of positive things. The young people of our city are amazing. This year, the thing that struck me is we had a deputy sheriff in San Francisco come over to Vallejo to play ball with the kids.
Really?
It's caught on like wildfire because people are enthusiastic about the fact that they're not just playing ball, but we've got this barrage of social services that we're connecting to it. And I'm blessed this year that we not only did eyeball and iChair, which is a cheerleading component. We have young girls as young as 3 and as old as 76.
Okay.
Cheerleading this year.
That's fabulous.
Reverend Natalia Johnson, who is the cheerleading coach at Vallejo High, volunteers her time for that. But we did a summer math institute at Franklin Middle School. And we also did a 2-week free summer camp at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. So we touched a lot of kids and families this summer.
That is so wonderful. I am so happy to hear that. Deborah, I know that you have 2 young sons in the...
Right, 2 children, actually a son and a daughter.
Oh, okay.
So they've been in Vallejo schools since the beginning. Both at Mare Island Health and Fitness Academy on Mare Island, which is our neighborhood public school. We actually live at the waterfront, but it transfers them to go there.
Right.
And then now my son is at Vallejo High School.
Okay.
And we are living the dream there. It's just been exciting.
Class of 1967, thank you very much. Okay.
So yes, go Red Hawks, Pryor Apache.
Right.
And so I love hearing stories like Pastor Quick has shared, because that's kind of what parents are really excited about.
Sure.
When we joined the district, that would be in 07-ish, there wasn't a lot of connection to the community. I think, we
From
were
the school districts.
correct,
yeah.
and we were sort of coming out of the tsunami of bankruptcy, et
Yes,
cetera.
of course.
And as a parent, I was wanting to find out, did I make the best choice for my kids?
Sure.
I'm a product of public schools, so I've always believed in that model. And what could we do post-bankruptcy to really energize parents, families, students, to keep them engaged? And so the board at the time, I think, heard that message. They were parents, a lot of them, so they knew what they wanted.
Sure.
They brought in a great leader, Dr. Bishop, who fulfilled that dream for us. And it was really refreshing to see progress happening instead of a lot of talk. We finally got some action. And I think, when you've joined our community and hearing all these stories, that's that action in real life. And so the academies, I've been very involved now that my son is in high school. So with the engineering academy there, we've had to rebuild some partnerships, which I think, are just sort of the evolution of organizations.
And for those that don't know, there are a number of academies at both the high schools, right?
Correct. So when you hear wall to wall, that's what that means.
Okay.
So
All
from every grade and every campus, every classroom is part of a small learning community, which is very unique for Vallejo School District versus other school districts. Because you'll hear about an academy at one high school, but only certain kids get into it or enroll into it, and they only have one program. But here we offer several topics. So there's engineering, there's biotech, there's health and fitness, there's law. So it's almost enrolling in college. So we plant that seed early for our kids, and I think that really excites parents.
Of course it is. Not only that, but I can see how it just catches the imaginations of our youth, because it gives them the opportunity to feel more adult. I mean, pretty soon, if we do everything for them and then they leave high school, they graduate, and then we toss them, off to college, and now, they may even leave the state, and now you got to learn how to manage on your own. And a lot of times when we do too much for them, they don't get that opportunity to stretch their wings and fly.
Correct. And I think it connects them to seeing a career. I think many of us went through school going, well, what am I going to do with this? How do I find this? And I went into college undecided, right? And I think a lot of kids now have mentoring and guidance early to know that they can make those choices. And I also tell kids, just because you're in this academy, this may be how you weed out what you don't want to do, right? Or you've already been there, done that. Now what do you want to do in college, right? So they learned a lot of skills that way, and it's really wonderful working with the teachers and the staff to kind of bring those strategies to the table. So already the teachers met yesterday for the academy. They have gone over their capstone project strategies. We've got 9 mentors so far lined up to do e-mentoring, so we'll work on other business partnerships to have other people mentor with the kids. So we're starting the school year with a lot of things already in place at Vallejo High, which is really exciting.
I am absolutely happy to hear that, because quite frankly, with the disruption that has happened in the school system, with the loss of Dr. Bishop, as a parent, I graduated from local schools. My children, my grandchildren, I currently have nieces and great nieces and nephews in the Vallejo Unified School District. And so I'm really concerned about what's going to happen in this upcoming school year with all of the, let's just say, disruption and disturbance that has been going on in the school district. I'll ask you first, Pastor Quick, what is your take on it?
Well, I think Sister Sears pointed out the tremendous progress that the district was making.
Sure.
I think across the board, we saw test scores, graduation rates.
Sure.
We saw the opening of academies. We saw teachers getting raises year after year. I think when you're moving in a particular direction, the question becomes, in a change election, and we all know we had a change election.
Yes, we did.
What do you want to change?
Right.
What are you railing against, and what are you for? And from a national level to a local level, we saw candidates that employed the rhetoric of change without having a plan to go to something different.
Oh, yes.
And the difference is, from the Trump administration to the local administration, we feel the impact immediately.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I attended several of the meetings back in March where
Yes.
Dr. Bishop was removed. I still don't understand the rationale. The board did not give a rationale other than this is what we were elected to do. But I think what's become very difficult for our district, and my institution has about 1,000 families.
Yes.
Some who are students, some who are teachers. There's an uncertainty which has led to a lack of morale.
Sure.
And that uncertainty is benchmarked by a sudden change in transparency. The transcripts from meetings are no longer available. There seems to be a veil of secrecy that's come over the board.
Yes, kind of a shroud. You don't
Yes,
really know.
you don't really know what's going on.
Right.
Other than when you hear one board member suggest that maybe he needs to go to the district attorney on other board members.
Yes.
That's quite unsettling.
Yes, it is.
And then on the other end, a constant stream of what we hear nationally, which I might say is fake news.
Yes. Yes.
People ran for office saying they were going to build a wall. Still not sure what that had to do with their local school board.
Right.
I feel that there's a constant misappropriation of information and misinterpretation of information. Board member Kearney Brown is very quick to throw out numbers that do not match what's happening in our district.
Oh yeah, she throws statistics around and as if they were, written in stone somewhere. And a lot of times, you when she's questioned about where did she get this from, well, I got that from off of this website, or I got this. So she doesn't really pay attention to what's actually going on in the local schools, and she doesn't really know or understand, in my opinion, the governance of a school district.
Well, the bigger issue, I think, is it's impacting morale.
Absolutely.
Staff, from that famous March 15th meeting where people were just going to be in large numbers summarily fired.
Right.
Where Mr. Jones had to explain that you can't do that by ed code.
Right. Right.
The lack of knowledge of governance and how it impacts immediate lives.
Sure.
I was standing there, couched between two administrators, and I could just hear them gasp, wondering how I'm going to feed my children.
Right.
They're now operating in fear rather than creativity.
Absolutely.
And we have to turn that around if we want to have this sort of dynamism that our district had for the last 7 years.
Right.
I totally agree. I think parents are also stunned and sort of waiting for the new vision, whatever that might be. And it's very cloudy right now. I've been attending board meetings since 2007 because I learned early on that that's where policy happens.
Right.
The school site is where it gets implemented, but if I want to help direct or influence what's going to happen to my child, I go to board meetings. So I listened for a long time at first to kind of feel my way. That's what I was just doing to learn. And then I started speaking up and just giving my opinion back. And now I speak up a lot more because I know our leaders don't know their own policies.
Sure.
They're not following their own
Sure.
policies. So I think it's very critical that you point that out, that they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Other dysfunctionality that's happening, they tried to get rid of people illegally. That wasn't compliant.
Right.
There are resolutions that come to the board that the new interim superintendent they appointed, that he doesn't even agree with. So there's dysfunctionality between the board and their new superintendent.
Their new interim superintendent
Right.
that they chose, selected, and brought on board.
Exactly.
Is that okay?
The new budget for the school year barely got approved. They didn't understand how the local control accountability plan
LCAP, as it's known.
LCAP parallels and supports the budget. They don't know the difference about how you make goals versus the actual projected numbers of things. It's quite scary because again, back in 2007, we were just coming out of those types of things.
Yeah.
Right.
And we are repeating history and going backwards. So I really appreciate that question, Pastor Quick, of to what gain was this change?
Absolutely.
You have all these objective data, this multiple metrics pointing us in the right direction, meaning that the programs and decisions of the prior board and the superintendent were working.
We're working, absolutely.
So to what gain are we going now? And that's very scary for a parent, and I think that leads to our declining enrollment again. We actually stabilized enrollment under Dr. Bishop to where it wasn't going down, we were sustaining our enrollment, we were even having gains in some school sites. And now it's going completely backwards again. And
Tell
the
us
board,
a little bit about
Yeah.
why that matters, Deborah.
Sure.
Why does that matter in terms of attendance, and why is that so important to a parent, to us that support the school district?
Well, in California and probably other states, and funding comes through enrollment.
Okay.
So when parents choose your schools, their children enroll in the schools.
Okay.
And when their children come to school and attend every day, we get money.
Okay.
So it's really a two-pronged approach. You need to enroll, so we get approximately $9,000 per child who
Okay.
come to our schools. And then when they attend every day and we have good attendance, it fulfills that because they'll take money away if our attendance goes down.
Okay.
So the strategy for the new year, at least the board is talking about focusing on chronic absenteeism for the kids. So we're about 2 or 3 percentage points below state average. So if we just bring that up 1 percentage point, it can bring in $1.4 million for the district. I want them to look a little broader at increasing enrollment because attendance doesn't matter if people are still leaving the school district.
Exactly.
And And I think they need to not just focus on expenses, but how to grow revenue, like the prior board did. Put in programs that attract parents, make sure those programs sustain so students are engaged and will come to school. It's actually a very easy formula, but they're too distracted.
If you understand that attendance is what it drives, but if you have a board that really is unaware or chooses a different style in terms of charter schools, these academies and these charter schools, and there's some pros and cons about each one of them. I happen to be a public school advocate. I grew up with a public school education. My children did, my grandchildren have, and I can see that we're having that ability to be able to be rounded, to go to your local neighborhood schools, learn things, be a part of the school district. I've worked as a school site president. I've been a parent volunteer like you, Deborah.
I'm following your journey, Deborah.
For many, many years.
Yes.
And once Dr. Bishop came on board, it seemed as if things had sort of stabilized at a lot of different schools. I was at Vallejo High because my grandchildren at the time were at Vallejo High, but it just seemed that things were a lot better, and now everything is just all up in the air. And that's what bothers me so much about this, is that you take something away, but you don't tell us what you're going to replace it with. I'm not going to say repeal and replace, but I'll use that. Those two R's there.
I didn't even think about it that way.
Well, I think the bigger issue, besides Dr. Bishop in particular,
sure,
is the culture out of which is being wrought.
Yes.
Yeah.
The way the dismissal happens.
Yes, of course.
Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, you believe in fiscal accountability.
That's right. That's right.
Why fire someone with just a year left on the contract? Why hire 2 interims in between? Or why spend the money on a search firm? It just financially, it didn't make sense. But I think on another end, there is this sense in which the community feels disenfranchised.
Yes, sir. Yes, definitely.
Now all of these conversations about race and gender are coming to the forefront in negative ways. And I think if we want to be a holistic community, we have to be clear that one of the things that Sister Deborah brought up was enrollment, and how enrollment is impacted by economics.
Yes, sir. Yes.
When you're working in communities on ground level, you realize that poverty is a major issue in certain pockets of our district. Not all, but certain.
That's right.
And that was nothing that was talked about in the campaigns. We never heard
Got one word
about poverty from any of the candidates that won. We heard from those who lost.
Right.
And we've got to ask, how are the social services, lack thereof?
Right.
What does the role of public transportation in our city play in how children can get back and forth to school? Are some children caretakers in their home? I mean, you've got a number of social issues that should be talked about on a policy level. Right. And we do know that our district is filled with people who are below the poverty line.
Level, that's exactly correct.
And when you attack wall-to-wall academies, when you attack health programming, when you attack free lunch, you've got to ask yourself, are you even aware of the statistics of your student population?
Right.
Correct.
And if so, if not, can you create good policy for them? And lastly, are you equipping teachers to be able to deal with them? And I think we also have to have an honest conversation about not just administration, but also about teaching and teacher development.
Yes.
Are the rules set in such a way where our teachers are mandated to be engaged in teacher development, to be engaged in understanding how these economic roles, race roles, gender roles, sexual identity roles play in the very young people who are going to be sitting in your classroom?
Homelessness, we were just talking.
Homelessness.
Correct.
Homelessness, that's
It's
a big
huge
issue.
issues. And if you're not coordinating them very well,
Yes.
then you can't create policy that gets them there. I happen to have served as the lobbyist for Atlanta Public Schools for a short period of time when I lived in Atlanta. And what I understood about education policy is it's not done in a vacuum.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And
You gotta have stakeholders,
Yeah.
right?
Right, and Dr. Bishop actually brought that to the table, you know, and that's, I think, is her legacy. And a lot of things are still continuing at the site level, regardless of what's happening at the district office,
at the
boardroom specifically. But I am concerned that their message, their behaviors amongst themselves are role modeling our district staff and our leaders in our schools to just shut down.
Yes.
And that is a disservice to our children. My son graduates in 2 years. This is the time to get it to the finish line, right? This is the time to really solidify those academies for my daughter who's coming up.
Right.
And we're right there.
We were right
and
on the
now
cusp,
I
right?
feel like there's no safety net anymore. There's no leadership happening out of that boardroom. And what's unfortunate is the trustees now don't see themselves as the leaders.
I was going to say there's no vision. There is no leadership because, you know, you have a 3-2 period. And the two, you know, they might even split up. Okay. So when it comes to making policy, who can make the policy? Who can set? That's what a board's job is to set policy. How can you set policy when you don't even know the information about your kids in the school?
Correct. I don't think they read their own policies existing, the ones that are in existence, and I feel they lack that strategic ability. So for example, interagency meeting, which happens with different agencies in the city. President Kayang is our representative to go. He announced at a board meeting that he's going to talk about attracting teachers to Vallejo. He never called the president of our union to come attend. That's just a basic strategy meeting, action. I called President Gradwell to attend, and she was like, "Thank you, I'll come." But he never reached out to her as a leader of the board. I don't think there's any violation of practice there, but it's just building, just knowing who to bring to the table. And if they don't know who to bring to the table, then they don't know who we're serving. And that's the sad story of the last 9 months.
What could we do as a community to help bridge this gap? I mean, I know that there's elections coming up in 2018, and hopefully we'll get some better candidates to run for the board, and I said it. But what could we as parents do? What could we as community members do? I'll start with you first.
Well, you know, I've tried to be strategic in bringing stakeholders to the table. As you said, the programs we run, once a quarter, we're meeting with the chief of police, the sheriff's department, Department of Social Services, probation department. If I can do that as a nonprofit organization, our district can do something as well. I think we have, as advocates, to have to push both the board and the district staff to understand the differences in their roles. The leadership, I think, has to come from the office of the superintendent, who day to day has to manage the staff and make the district work. The problem is when you get a person in that office, you also have people who oppose the vision who should be building the district. We've got to pull in the Chamber of Commerce. Our city is gentrifying, and that's a reality.
That's just the real.
But you're not going to build enrollment when the very members who's supposed to represent the board are always beating down the district.
Absolutely.
People have no confidence in the public vision because when you're running the Cron 4 with bad statistics, why would anybody want to send their child to this district?
Not if you have the trustees of the board continually
bad-mouthing
it and talking about it. Deborah, I'm going to have you wind up and tell us what solutions, what should we be looking for as parents? What should we as community members be doing?
I think parents need to speak up and just say what they want, whether it's at a board meeting, via an email, go to their school site, and know that they're not alone, right? I meet parents all the time saying, thank you for what you've said. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for saying it in the way you did, and I couldn't just articulate it quite that way. And what I like seeing is that we see a diversity of faces at school site meetings, at PTA meetings, at back to school nights. And I know parents can't make it to everything, but even just come once and provide that feedback, and that's helpful, so we get as many voices to the table as possible.
Well, thank you both so much for that. This has just been an absolutely wonderful discussion. I'd like to do a part 2 because the school year is coming up. This is August. This is going to run for the month of August, and then I think that maybe in January we'll hit this again and we'll see where we are, because I think that as a community, as we continue to reach and engage and we reach out, that's our job. That's our job to pull together as a community leader. As a mom, I'm a mom. I mean, you know, I care about kids. I care about your kids. You care about my kids. And I want to do what is best for our community. Having been born here, I'm a stakeholder here. I love Vallejo, as I was teasing her last night. You have to be here a while. I thank you both very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come to Our Voices. This is Deborah Dickson with Our Voices, and I have had the absolute best time of my life today speaking with 2 wonderful people who have our community and our kids' interests at heart. So I thank you all for joining me today. It's been a wonderful show. It's been a wonderful time, and I look forward to talking with you all next month. Thank you. This is Deborah with Our Voices. Thank you so much.